Hi everyone, and happy Friday. I'm just going to clean that camera because that's like filthy. Oh, okay, that's better. Happy Friday. Welcome to our monthly chat on the couch with Claire, where we interview a different person every month. Can be about kids, families, or just any kind of general topic, actually, really that I find interesting because I pick the people. Before we get started, I actually just wanted to let everyone know of something that's happening in 2 weeks' time in case you're interested. We've got a one-off special event. It's a webinar that's happening in 2 weeks' time on Thursday night. You can get the details on our website. And that is, I am going to be presenting on my personal opinions about why our youth are as depressed and anxious and in such a bad state as they are, which I guess is kind of the pub question I get asked every time I say I'm a psychologist with kids, right? So it's a little bit opinion-based. It's a little bit of my personal and professional opinions. If you want to know the details, jump onto our website. You can book your spot. You do need to book a spot, though, for that webinar. Anyhow, on to today. Happy Friday. It's a bit overcast in Sydney, but hoping for a good weekend. Now, my guest today, I'm thrilled to have on, that I have known all of 38 years of my life. For those that know how old I am, I'm 38. So she's a very dear friend to me, and as I said, someone I've known my whole life. Now, we're going to bring her in, and today is a little bit of a heavier topic. We're actually talking about grief. We're talking about child loss. We're talking about how to support people through that. We're talking about why we are so bad as humans with grief and death as well. So anyway, before I kind of start talking on about it, let's bring her in. I'm very pleased to welcome Edwina Symonds in. Hello. Hi, Ed.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. So, let's start off. I mean, I suppose we can jump into your story, but Edwina and I, as I said, have known each other for a very long time. But despite that, I'm going to start off like every other guest, and I didn't warn you, but I'm going to ask you a few icebreaker questions.
Yes.
Just to jump into it, right? So my first ones I've got here. Would you rather live somewhere tropical or somewhere with snow?
Tropical.
Tropical? I didn't think you'd say that.
100%. Well, I can't go out in the sun, so it's terrible. And I'm a ranger, and I've got a family of rangers. So we are not sun worshippers, but I would much prefer to be warm than be cold.
You can always take stuff off.
Yeah. Yeah, true, actually, because when you're in the cold, you're actually dressed better because you're always warm, like when you're in Japan or something snowboarding. No, I still think tropical. Yep.
Cool.
And there's more pina coladas.
That's true. Would you rather always be early or always be late?
Early.
Yeah,
early. I think time is really important, and I think other people's time is precious. And I think particularly in a work setting, when there's those people who are consistently late, one of my dear managers and mentors who I worked with for a really long time, she used to call people out on it and would say, why do you think your time is more important than mine?
Wow.
And it's such a strong statement, because it's like, actually, yeah, you said you would be here at 10:30 and you're not, so you're expecting me to wait for you. And it's like, oh, yeah, true. So I've always had that in my head, and I always try and be on time.
I think most people think that, but to say it out loud, that's,
I know. Yeah, she's fierce.
Okay, and last one. Would you rather be able to talk to animals or talk 10 foreign languages?
Language, for sure.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm not an animal person. Yeah. Needless to say, tonight, after this, for the very first time ever, we're going to the pet shop to babysit a dog overnight. So from our pet shop, you pick them up at 5 and drop them back at 9 o'clock the next morning. And my 3-year-old has been hounding me to do that. And I'm doing that tonight. So I don't know how this is going to go.
Start of the end. Then they start back.
Exactly. A few people have said to me, oh, once you have one, you're going to want one. And I'm like, I really don't. But okay, we'll see how I go. So yes, to speak language, not only to communicate with 10 times the amount of people that you could, but I think some languages are just so beautiful compared to the Australian language. Like, absolutely. As you know, speaking French, like the French language is like, wow, I wish I could do that. My brother is also married to a Colombian. So my Julie and my niece and nephew speak Spanish, and I can't communicate with them when they speak Spanish. So I'd love to be able to do that.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. All right. That's it. So now look, let's start off by for our audience watching here, which is mostly our mums and dads that know us through our clinic, that might be watching live. If you're watching live, say hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your family. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm not 38 yet. I'm 37. But even hearing those words, I'm like, what are these numbers? These are not us. Claire and I used to dress up in our mum's wedding dresses and dress her little brother, her baby brother up, who's like 6'5" now, in the wedding dresses as well. So yes, I'm 37. I'm married to my partner, Anthony, for the last 6 or 7 years. And in 20, we've had 3 children, Sebastian, Dash and Elodie. But in 2017, we had Sebi, and we lost him 10 months later in 2018. He had a very, very rare epileptic condition, and he died because his brain died in July 2018. Yeah.
And then you went on and had Dash.
So I was pregnant at the time. Yeah, I was 17 weeks pregnant at that time. And because Seb died, even though he had something wrong with him that we knew about, we didn't know that it was going to kill him. So it was very shocking at the time, even to his neurologists and all the amazing staff at Sydney Children's Hospital. Everyone was in shock because he was an otherwise very healthy, very normal baby. Literally the day he had the seizure was a Friday, and he didn't die until the following Tuesday because he was kept on life support, and we chose to donate his organs. But the 10 weeks before that, he'd never had a seizure. So we had this like moment at 6 months where he had a really bad seizure, and then he was not well for a little while, had a few small seizures and another big one. But then his medication, they nailed his medication, and then it sort of felt like a pipe dream. Like, did that just happen? But the thing is, they didn't really know anything about what was wrong with him. So they, you know, there's so much in the media nowadays about families who are almost fighting for certain tests to be tested in children and in fetuses, and even through DNA and pregnancy and all these things. But there is like hundreds of millions of things that could be wrong with you that doctors don't necessarily know about. So we were sort of given this code, like the thing that was wrong with him is called HCN1, and it was an error in DNA. And they knew there was one child in Australia that lives with it, and as far as I know, still only one. She has special needs, and there was about 40 children across the world that were written down or documented that also had this, but they also were very special needs. So Seb then didn't really fit into that either. So we sort of were just given this diagnosis of, here it is, we don't know, we're going to see how we go. And as I said, he was medicated well, but then when he died, it was really shocking for everyone.
Yeah, because that's a big jump from a diagnosis of epilepsy, which, you know, is not a great diagnosis, but, you know, the layperson knows about epilepsy, right? And a lot of people know people with, I know people with epilepsy, and they're managed and medicated, and it's like almost like a diabetic diagnosis. It's like fairly common, you know. It's like, okay, well, I've heard of this, epilepsy, yep, okay. That's then a big jump to actually, it's this very rare form. It's reduced down to these numbers and letters, and there's only 40 people in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And epilepsy is like that in itself. Epilepsy has a lot of, underneath the umbrella, there's a lot of things that can be going on in people who are deemed epileptic. So the term epileptic actually just means has had more than 2 seizures in their life.
Right.
That even applies if you have one when you're 5 and one when you're 40, they would say that about you. And then there's lots of other things that can go wrong. So this is what we found we didn't actually dig too deep because we didn't want to go into the world of HCN1, because as soon as we reached that world, we saw all these really unwell kids, and they had lots of other things going on as well. And so just didn't have that. And you know, we didn't want to feel like our life was limited, or we were limiting his life in any way by cotton wooling him at that stage. And the life of a special needs parent, I mean, I bow down to them. They're honestly saints. And we kind of knew, or we were sort of prepped that was probably going to be what was going to be the case because of the epilepsy diagnosis. Children with epilepsy, particularly the type of seizures that Seb was having, they were basically like, look, if this continues at this rate, like he was having seizures for many, many hours, and they were intubating him and getting the drugs and just trying to knock his brain out to stop, which is quite rare. Seizures are normally quite short. They were telling us he's not going to go to a normal school. You know, he might, you know, he'll get worse. If he continues to have these type of seizure, he will get worse. And by the time he's 5, you know, he won't be going to a school. So that was always there in the distance. But then he died at 10 months. So it was like that was taken from us. So it's just a different life choice that we had to build in.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess what I'm interested in discussing, particularly I suppose as a psychologist, is so you lost your baby boy at 10 months old. You've had 2 other children. You now do a lot of work for various organisations of organ donation, Red Nose, and you write beautifully about grief and child loss. Can we take a second just to talk about your thoughts through this? And you know, you've had other close deaths in your life that I know about. Why we are so terrible when it comes to this still very taboo thing, and child loss is the ultimate. It is the ultimate.
100%.
It's not supposed to happen. You are not supposed to lose children before you. And when that happens to someone, everyone says, well, what the F do you say? We're terrible. And so can you talk about a little bit, I suppose, why you think we're so terrible? I mean, is that just human nature? Is it ingrained? Is it evolutionary? Is it a protective thing? And then we might move on to some practical, advice from someone who's been there. And what do you say?
Yeah, of course. I don't know. I don't know if it's human nature, because I mean, as we go back to what we were talking about before, like language, I think some customs do it really well, and I think it's a stiff upper lip British thing that probably has filtered down into the Australian psyche, I guess, because one of the things when I was going through psychology and grief counselling after I lost Seb, actually, by way of background, I forget, it's hard when your viewers don't know me. My mum died when I was 4 years old. So basically my grandmother and my dad brought me up. And I adored my grandmother. She was everything to me. And then I lost my dad when I was 21. So he had a heart attack and died when he was 21. So we were effectively orphaned at that point. So I became even closer to my grandmother then. And then I lost her in 2013. She suffered through dementia for 16 months. It was the worst 16 months of our life and the family's life, because it's just such a hard way to watch someone fade. And I went to a grief counsellor through my work EAP, which I always advise people to use, because you never know if you're going to get a great psychologist on the end of the line. And I remember this was pre-COVID. I went to the offices, and it was the first time I'd actually ever seen a psychologist. And I said, I'm really sad. My grandmother's died. And then I was like, and my mum died, and my dad died, and And she got to the end of the session and was like, it's been great talking to you. I just don't think I'm qualified to deal with your layers of grief. She's like, it's not like you're presenting anything spectacular, but she's like, I just want you to have excellent grief.
Okay. It was too much for her.
Yeah, too much for her was basically what
it was like, Yeah. Yeah.
So then I met this other lady called Mary, and she was amazing and so beautiful, and she was older as well, so had that real maternal instinct, and talked about how important losing older people is in our lives. And this is like the first layer where I think people get it wrong. When someone's grandmother or grandfather dies, and the first thing we say is, oh, but how old were they? Oh, they had a good life. And it takes away so much, because like I even put it back to me, and I never grade people's grief, but I even look at the time I spent with Seb was 10 months. And of course it was my child and my baby. So it's, you can't look at it. But if you look at it as a sense of time, it was 10 months. But with Marty, I had 26 years.
Yes.
So when you say to your friend who's just lost their grandma, oh, but she was old, she's in a better place now.
It's natural. Really,
it's disrespectful. Like, it's like, no, I had her my whole life. Like, but it's just a thing we say. And I think this was my first deep look at how people offer condolence. And I agree, we do it so badly. When Zeb died, I reached out to Mary again. I found her again. And she was like, I can't believe this has happened to you. Like, this is so unfair. Like, how can something like this happen to me? Yeah. And that happened to me in the hospital too. It was the only ever why me moment. Because as I said, Seb was on life support. And we had one of those horrendous movie type moments where the doctor comes in and shuts the door, and there's 4 doctors and 4 nurses. And they said his MRI was catastrophic and he's died. And it was just like, what? Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I was like, what? Honestly, why is this happening to me? Not that I would ever wish this upon anyone else, but it was like, I was like, do you all realize how much I've lost in my life, and now you're taking my baby? But in hindsight, I've been able to, one of the things I do think now, and when I'm working with red noses, as we can touch on later, I often now like to reframe that when parents lose a child, that the reason we've lost people before is that whether you believe in somewhere else, I believe that all those other people are waiting for Seb. So Seb went to my mum and dad, his grandparents, and he went to my Marty, and that's just joyous for me to know. So it's kind of like, oh, maybe that all makes sense. Like, the reason I lost them all was because they were waiting for him. Because it's just otherwise ridiculous that you lose.
One of the other things, we're just thinking about what people say, and one of the other things, you said with older deaths, they say, it was the end of their life and they had a good life. Be thankful for that. And one of the other things, I suppose, I don't know whether people said this with Seb. So Seb had a medical condition. I lost my mum a few years ago from what could be described as also a medical condition. And one of the things that was said was, at least she's at peace, at least she's not in pain. I don't know if that was said to you. At least Seb avoided, what could have been the future pain for his life, or at least I got that a lot.
I think anything that starts with at least. Is
okay.
Wrong. Like, it's wrong. Okay. I often say, no, so my biggest thing with condolence is say something. But then I would add a layer of, if it's going to start with at least, don't do that. At least you're pregnant. At least another baby's coming. Yes. Again, at least it's not a special needs life. Or I'm not religious, but the religious play of God needed another angel, or he's in a better place. Tell me what better place, a 10-month-old baby. Where's a better place than with his mum? Yeah, where's he gone? And so and all of this stuff frustrated me, right? But then you have the other side of society, probably 30 to 40%, who say nothing, do nothing. We're 4 years on now. I've still got people who've never acknowledged it, never said anything. Like, you lose friends, you lose people from your life when you lose a child, because they're so incapable of saying or doing something. And this is where it comes back to psychology. So Mary was like, you've got to remember that condolence is something you learn. It's a learned behavior, or it's, as we said, it's a cultural thing. So, you read about other cultures who lay the body out and it's there for 4 days and everyone can come and say hi. And, that still happens in very strict, and in Ireland, it happens a lot, actually, in a very Catholic thing, very strange. But in Sri Lanka, we were in Sri Lanka a few years ago, and we drove past this sort of big procession of cars and people, and there was just something burning on the side of the road, and it was like, oh, this is a burial. The whole town comes out for a burial, and they just burn the body on the side of the road.
Wow.
Because it was outside the cemetery, and it was like, wow, how beautiful. But it's like everyone comes to pay their respects. It's just a thing. And a lot of their Maori tradition as well, it's like death is like when someone receives the most amount of respect. But Mary also said, because it plays back to my grandmother helping bring me up, I'm just old-fashioned with cards, like if someone has a christening, you send a card. If someone gets a new house, you send a card, an engagement. So I was very used to acknowledging things, and I think it's terribly sad if someone loses something, a child, a dad, a mum, a sister, a brother, anything, that I'm comfortable acknowledging it. And she said, but that's you. So what you're taking offense by people around you who maybe as they were growing up, and she said, you've got to remember that your mum died when you were 4. So without you realizing it, condolence was being laid in around you. Yeah. And what happens when a mother of 3 young children dies is the whole community pulls up their socks and helps that dad and those 3 kids out. And I can honestly say that, like, the community I grew up in, like our mutual friend Kate, like every mum and dad in the Loftus community helped me through the death of my mum without me knowing. So condolence was kind of inbuilt into me when I was young, and it just feels very natural. But often what happens in families, say someone dies, say it is the grandfather that dies, and it's dad's dad and dad's sad. Cool, we have a funeral, we shut the door, we never talk about it again. So then when it comes to this adult level of the first time something tragic happens, their reaction plays back to those times where they've had to deal with that in their life and the performance that was in front of them, and that's how people add condolence. So some people are good at it because they've probably had to do it more and it feels more natural, and some people just don't know what to do because they've never been shown how.
Never been shown, and then some people, I mean, I'm amazed that you said you had one why me moment. One? Like, are you serious? One? Anyway, some people you come across have not had exposure to loss through death.
Exactly.
I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you met those people and went like, what the actual, but you get some people and they're like, no fault of theirs. I mean, that's wonderful. But they
we have even people our age, like even people our age are only just starting to lose a first grandparent, because our grandparents would be 80s, mid 80s, 90s now, and they're only starting to lose the first one, and you're like, this is the first death in your life. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it is that. It's just shocking, and I think I actually really love the idea more recently, and Olivia Newton-John being a beautiful example of this, and I guess this is social media and the world media is spreading. I love that we grieve more openly for famous people now. We talk about it more. And I think that is all slow steps to getting there, and hoping that they go, hang on, if I put something on my Instagram about Olivia Newton-John, then surely if my best friend's mum died, I would do the same thing for that. Like, it's just those little ties that it's like,
Yeah, but people are so, I think that's different because people are so worried about doing the wrong thing. It paralyzes them, and they're so worried about offending you or offending their friend. Like, what's the right thing to do? And should I put something up? Should I not? Will they like that? Will they not like it? I don't know. I think we're all just wanting to know, like, from someone like you, like, is doing nothing worse? Like, we're
doing nothing so much worse. Doing
Okay.
nothing is so much worse.
Okay.
And I would also layer that with a Facebook or Instagram message still does not play to a card, and particularly in a child loss sense. So, and I talk about this from a late miscarriage or a stillborn as well. The most important things I think you can do if someone loses a child is to write dates in your diary immediately, and in your Apple Calendar, put the dates in, set them for yearly, so that people know what the birth date was or what the due date was supposed to be if they've lost a child before they've had the baby, the date of the death. And remember, because the way I look at cards in particular, again, I'm old-fashioned, but they're so bloody easy to send nowadays. Cardly.net.au, I should work for them because I tell everyone so much. You just do card, and you can choose different handwriting, and then you just type the address.
Oh, wow.
So it's not about going to an Australia Post anymore, people. You just do it online, pay you $6. But Seb doesn't have anything else except that box. So he had 10 months. He had a very short life. So when he died, I have hundreds of cards. That's his box. When he has birthdays, and he's had, 4 since then, I get cards every year. That's his box. That's all I have of him. So when you don't acknowledge physically with something, or even a reminder, or, like anything, it means it's not there. So it's nice to say something, but I honestly think that there's nothing better than a card in the mail as an acknowledgement, and particularly those reminder dates. And again, back to grandmother and grandfather, if it is someone who was important in their life, if it is a mother or father, put that date in your diary. People who are grieving grieve forever, and they grieve those people forever. So the pain doesn't get less or different. So by you bringing it up, or reminding them of the fear of upsetting you, which is often the excuse people say to me about not talking about Sam, I'm scared to upset you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm upset. My baby died. Like that, like, don't put that on you. Like, it's got nothing to do with you. I'm allowed to be upset. Just do something, acknowledge it, talk about it. If it makes you feel awkward, that's on you. That's not on us. If we don't want to talk about it, we won't. Like, there's good and bad.
There's so much in there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to write notes. Cardly. I'm just writing.
Cardly. Yes. Yeah, we should put show notes in after.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Yeah, there's also that, and I suppose this happens with other forms of grief of you can't really say it with family separation and divorce, because that does soften, and the pain of death doesn't, it's not the same. But there is that initial. But it's grief.
I think that's right, though. There's grief. Grief just isn't a death. There's so many grievances in life. When people lose a job, it can be traumatic, or they're made redundant, or exactly a marriage breakdown, or even checking in at those points if it is a separation, where you know that something has shifted. Like if you see online that person's ex-partner is dating again, like, to check in on that person at that point in time. It's almost like the whole premise of Are You Okay Day, right? It's just saying to people, you don't have to be an expert to check in on people when something makes you go, oh, that might be jarring for them.
Yeah.
Not check in at that point. Like, just do it. Just do it, because people are either going to say, yeah, I'm fine, and lie. And if you're a close enough friend, you'll know what a lie looks like. Yeah. Or they'll go, oh, thank you for asking. Yeah, that's really shit.
Yeah. And I get that people have, people have busy lives and stuff. And I don't want to, you don't want to be kind of, it's all about me. But initially, I think with major grief and loss, you do go into, you know more than anyone, you go into, you go into doing mode, and then there's a self-protective factor there with your brain, and everyone copes differently. But it often is when people kind of trail off 12 months, 24 months afterwards, that they forget that pain is real, of the loss of a parent or a child, obviously. But that they go, how, didn't your parent pass away around this time? I don't have the date, but I think it was, is everything okay? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's even that initial period, because in the first week or month when someone dies and you're close-knit, everyone's there. Everyone.
Yeah.
Like, so the flowers don't stop.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to empty the dirty vases. The freezer is full of food, and then it just stops. Like, it just stops because the world does move on, and it is. And yeah, that's the problem with grieving. That's what's so hard about it, and that's why it feels so intense right at the start, because you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through. And it's like, no one knows. There's no way to get through it. You just will, and time will make it better. But that's all distraction at the start. So you're kind of like, I don't have to get on now because people are feeding me or whatever. Yeah. So like what I like to do if it is something like that, where you're like, oh, I just want to check in on that person, but it might be 6 months since their mum died, take them a meal. Like, don't ever feel like doing any of the things that you would do at the start become inappropriate later. Like, if you grieving is exhausting. And if you're checking in on someone, to take them a meal, like food is just joy. It always is. And but just particularly for parents of young children, like, if you know a friend's not doing well in any way, shape or form, take them a meal. It's so simple, but it means so much.
It means so much. Like, without the grief element, if someone came over and brought me a meal.
Exactly. You just drop it in. Like, meal is always good. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always.
I want to move on so that we're not talking all afternoon about this, because we could. But I want to link this in with something that I only because of you talk a lot to my friends about. And in educating them, and that is organ donation. And I honestly do now personally harp on about it. Didn't have a slightest thought about it prior to Debbie's death. Yeah. So I'll let you talk about it, but I think for me, and the biggest message that I drive home to my friends and family, and I know you've said it a million times, but I know you don't mind saying it again, is this opt-in system. And I'm screaming it from rooftops. Can you please talk about that?
Yes, hopefully will be one of the legacies I leave behind in Australia, that I help change these. There are 13 million Australians who could be on this register but are not. And that is simply because we have an opt-in system. But the thing about this opt-in system is that it used to be on driver's license. It still is in South Australia, but it's not in any other state. But what happened, where there was a breakdown in communication there, or breakdown in government agency, they took it off the driver's license and then they didn't put it anywhere else. So you actively have to go to donatelife.gov.au. It takes you literally a minute. You type in your Medicare card and your name, tick, it's done. So what that means in the room is, if there was an occasion where someone in your family had passed away but their organs were viable, and this is an absolutely minute occurrence, so less than 2% of all Australians who die in a hospital setting, this can become eligible. So it's literally a freak occurrence that it will ever happen to you. So I like to say that because I like to I think people automatically think about the what if I had a car crash, and they think about the drama of that. And I just want to bring people away from that. We're talking about people who are already dead. There's nothing going to bring you back. There's no horror in this. Yeah, you're brain dead. You're gone. You don't need your organs anymore. Everyone knows that you're dying. It's not horrible. And I could talk, about Seb's experience, but basically you just need to go to the register and do it. The reason they changed it was because when it was on the license, so many mums had to sign off the form. So for their 16-year-old to get their L plates, they would go, oh no, because I don't want my 16-year-old to be in a car accident, like as if ticking that box would make that happen.
A car accident?
Yeah, so they sort of realised that so many people were saying no, that they went, okay, well, let's not put it on that form anymore. But now it's gone nowhere. So the reason there's a lot of Australians aged over 50 who the percentage is actually much higher because it was on their licence originally. But so many people just think that they're on this register and they're not.
So that's the biggest response I get, and you probably get, right? So if I say it to friends, they go, "Oh yeah, I think it's on my license."
You just think that they are. And the hardest thing is, I think the second part of the piece is that you tell your friends and family, because what we do find, the research is quite clear. Someone always makes a decision in the room, right? So say this did occur, the doctors would say, did you know this person has signed an organ donation register? They are viable, and we can save some organs here. Say you're the daughter of the dad, and you didn't feel comfortable, then you say, no, I don't want that to happen. That's fine. They won't do it. Then no one's forcing you to do it. But the research is extremely clear that a day later, a week later, a month later, that daughter feels extreme and utter guilt that they didn't live out their dad's wishes for them. So because the conversation hadn't happened first, she was like, I don't want you to take my dad's organs, so no. But if dad had just had that conversation and said, kids, right, I'm happy. If I'm gone, I'm gone. I want my organs to go. In that room, that conversation changes. So it's so important not only that you get on this register, but that you tell your friends and family, because you never know who's going to be your person in the room who's actually making that final decision.
So even though you're on the register, someone can override that.
Yes, someone can always override. Yeah, and that does happen with warring siblings.
And what if you're not on the register? Can a family member step in at that point and say, oh, yeah, they would have wanted that. That's okay? No. Okay,
no.
So
and this is the whole problem.
Yeah.
So it's pretty heartbreaking. Yeah. It's heartbreaking to know about it and to know, like, and that's the thing, when I would urge people when they do go on, even though it does only take 1 minute, I would urge people to look at the facts and figures, because they're quite shocking. They're quite shocking how rare they are. And then if you do a quick Google for countries who are opt-out systems, it's obviously so much higher. So many more lives get saved, so many more. It's not even necessarily lives saved. It's like people on dialysis need multiple kidneys throughout their lives. So it's literally just to keep people alive. And that's what happened in Seb's case. His kidneys were sewn together. They would have been the size of a grape once sewn, and went into an adult who'd been on dialysis for over 6 years, and they came off the next day.
Wow.
So it's just, it's people. I honestly don't know now how people feel about it, because I think I probably used to feel the same too. I think I would have been on the register, same. I thought I might have been. And now I'm like, why wouldn't you? Because it's the only thing that made sense to me. Like, people say, how did you come to that in the room? And I'm like, it was me. It wasn't the doctors. But it was just like, are you kidding? Like, surely you have to save another baby out of this. Like, how can you not donate organs? Because you don't need them. You don't need them.
I mean, from my talking to people, I don't think the problem, and I'm sure you'd agree, is convincing people of this. It's people going, I'm like an organ donor.
I thought I was. And that's it. And that's why it's so simple. And you Donate Life is a government body. They don't do great on communication. And I honestly don't understand why they don't just call up Medicare, call up the health minister and say this, because you know how you get MyGov emails out once a month. You get an app on your phone that says you've got a MyGov inbox. Like, someone needs to take this over. And I don't understand why Medicare doesn't push it out. But it's just the way that it is. We're just opt in, and I hope to change that one day.
Or at least, when you are getting the driver's license, Donate Life handing out a pamphlet to say, like, with your license, to say this is what you need. I don't know.
Yeah, telling people in some way, shape, or form. And there's a really good TED talk, which I can share with you after, about this exact topic. And honestly, just changing the way that the question is asked on those forms to actually say, tick this box if you do not wish to be part of an organ donation, as opposed to in Australia, whereas it used to say, tick this box to be involved with. And that psychology changes people's minds intensely as well. So look, there's so much that we could do. We'll get there one day, but the more people like you who are sharing the message, the better, because there are 13 million Australians, and that's a pretty high number.
Who could be.
Who could be.
Okay. Okay, now
for your listeners who have 16-year-olds, 16 years old.
Yes. So people, donatelife.gov.au. Donatelife.gov.au. Just do it. It's 2 seconds. Like, go do it. And I know there's a million life admin things to do, but this is just,
it's very important.
imperative. It's very important. All right, we have talked so long. So just, I guess I want to end with sticking on that organ donation topic and linking it back to grief. I don't know whether, this is a pretty obvious question, really. I mean, it doesn't take away any pain or grief. I'm not suggesting that, but what did it add? What did it mean in any way, shape or form that you can articulate to have that as part of Seb's story, and not have the story ending there in the hospital without the organ donation?
I think that's it. I think it means his story lives on because his story was so short, and he died during Organ Donation Awareness Week. And for people that don't know, I have a background in communications. So I was like, this was a sign. This was like a wet fish to the face, like, Mum, I'm dying now because you need to tell people to do this. So I see my advocacy for organ donation as a part of his legacy to Australia. And that's why I write about it a lot. It's why I, get on daytime television and talk about it, because the more people who sign on that register, it's not because of me, it's because of Seb, because this happened in my life. And there's a beautiful community of organ transplant donors and recipients. You don't know how important it is until you're part of that community. And it's so beautiful to see when we've never met our donor or spoken to our donor, but our recipient, sorry. But when those connections are made,
Can they be made?
So much. Pardon?
Can they be made?
So Donate Life always stays in the middle unless you find each other. And it's why I speak very openly about the date that Seb died. If they wanted to find me, they could very easily find me. But they've never contacted us, which we find bizarre, which even the people at Donate Life are like, you wrote the most beautiful letter. And we also put Seb's, you're not allowed to identify, obviously, but we put Seb's eulogy in the letter that we wrote to them. And like the whole team are like, how have they not written back to this? This is crazy. But again, it comes back to condolence. Like, it's just hard for some people to acknowledge that. And they are probably feeling, oh my God, a baby died for me to live.
For me.
But I'm like, yeah, my baby died and you're living. And I'm so happy for you. Like, that's what makes sense. So we hope one day that they might contact us. But you see it when, the project or whatever ever do a story about like donors and recipients finding each other and the beauty in that connection, because it means that they live on. And I think that life is eternal. And whenever I'm talking to grieving parents through the Red Nose support line, I am so conscious, and I'm so conscious in my own house for my children, that Seb is alive here. Like, just because someone died, it doesn't mean they need to be gone. Particularly as a mother, it's my job to make sure that Seb lives here. Because if I speak about him, and if he's very present in my home and he's very present in my heart and my language and my conversation, it allows other people to have him present in their lives as well.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so if we've talked about Donate Life website, rednose.org has some great links to
Red Nose is fabulous. Yeah, I mean, so I'm a peer support. They have a 24/7 line. It's one of the only 24/7 call centres in Australia. Sorry, it's not a call centre. It's a line that's picked up by parent volunteers like me. So anyone who's dealing with loss, we deal with, multiple miscarriage, infertility. We speak to grandmas and husbands and, everyone on the spectrum of grieving parents. Someone will always pick up the phone and have a chat to you. So Red Nose, and it's known as SANS in some other states in Australia, have a bevy of other support services. But I honestly think for grieving parents, this is an extremely important service that's available to everyone 24/7.
Yeah, okay. And if people have watched this and they would like to reach out to you? Are you open to that?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, and particularly if people have a reason to reach out to me, like, and I think I say that on the front page of my website, that if you're here for the same reason that I think you're here, like, I'm sorry that you're here, but the grieving parent community is a really beautiful community. And as I said before, you lose friends who you didn't expect to lose, but you gain so much when you join this community that no one wants to be a part of.
Yeah. And that's your website there. Whether you are a grieving parent, I'm thinking perhaps even those people who are struggling to do anything.
Yeah, I've got some tips and tricks on there, about condolence and what to do. But if I can leave people with one thing about condolence, is it say something. Don't shy away from it. If it makes you feel awkward, that's fine. You can deal with that later, but don't shy away from doing something, because you can lose friendships over it, and you're the person that will feel guilty about that, not the other person.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. That was huge.
So it's a lot.
No, we could keep going. We could keep going. So anyway, but we won't. But I'll leave people with that. That's your website, thegriefway.com. People can find you there. And I think just a couple of huge takeaway messages about, I think the two big ones are organ donation and do something. If someone has had any type of grief, death or otherwise, reach out. Absolutely. And you may feel uncomfortable, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. That's been great.
Your openness and articulation, and your child slept through that whole thing.
I've got 2 sleeping children. It's great.
Friday afternoon. Woo!
My time. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.